Hello, hello, welcome for another episode of Author Spotlight. Hey, it's your host with the most, your main man, Darren and Palmer. Excited to be with you, where I get the honor and the privilege to be able to go behind the scenes with best-selling authors from across the globe. We have a blessing today. We got Miss Mitzi Perdue in the building. Say hello to the people, Miss Mitzi, if you don't mind.
Hi, everybody, and I'm just delighted to be with you, and I hope I can share some things that are useful to you.
Awesome, awesome. I know she will. Now, I want to just share a little bit about Miss Perdue. She's an author, speaker, and businesswoman. She is the past president of the 40,000 member American Agro Women organization. She's also a former syndicated columnist for Scripps Howard, and her column, The Environment and You, was the most widely syndicated environmental column in the country. Her television series, Country Magazine, was syndicated to 76 stations. She's the founder of CERES Farms, the second generation family owned vineyards in California. If you ever tasted any of the following wines, you may have sampled her grapes: Kendall Jackson, and the list goes on. I don't want to mess up the names with my southern drawl like Tim McGraw, but at the same time, I know our audience out there might have tasted some of these wines, and I'm going to allow Miss Mitzi to go more in detail with that. But also, at the time of getting the bio, she has also written, yes, for those in Dallas, especially those who are in Texas, you know the number, 22 for Emmett Smith, but 22 books for Miss Mitzi as well. So, Miss Mitzi, you have a wonderful, wonderful bio. You've done so much, and we really appreciate having you on the show.
Well, it's a joy to be here, and again, I'm eager to share anything that would be useful.
Awesome, awesome. Now, while we're on the subject, I want us to go back, and if you don't mind, because I want to take bite-sized steps, take a step-by-step understanding on the process. Some of the people seeing all the things that some of them are hearing what I've read. Some of them at the time when they be able to watch the recording, they'll be able to look at your bio. But you didn't just wake up like this. You didn't just wake up so accomplished. So if you don't mind, let's go back to your first book. Share with us what was the name of that book and what made you believe that you could even write a book when so many had failed at the task.
Well, let's see. My first book was when I was, golly, I guess I was about 38. And I have a story that just might, I don't know, resonate with some other people, because I'd actually always yearned to be a writer. I mean, just from childhood, I wanted to be a writer. And I even used to keep a diary and write in a certain number of words every day, just with the idea that I'd get more fluent. Sort of like a pianist does 5-finger exercises. My strategy from somewhere around age 10 or 12 was just to write. But up until age 38, I never had. And that ought to be a puzzle, because if I wanted to do it, why wasn't I doing it? Well, something happened in my life that just changed everything around, and maybe other people might benefit from it. I had a really good friend who was just an absolute genius, and all his life he wanted to write the great book. And from age 20 or so, he had been collecting information and file folders worth of stuff for his great book. But then at age 68, he had absolutely terrible, devastating news that he had such severe heart disease that they didn't think they could keep him alive long enough for quadruple bypass surgery. And in other words, a death sentence. And if you and I were told that we were going to die, terrible. But I think for him, possibly it's even worse, because his entire life had been geared towards writing this great book. Well, a miracle happened. He went to something called the Pritikin Clinic, which is just really good at diet and exercise and meditation and spirituality and a whole lot of things. At this clinic, he lost 15 pounds, and he just basically got better and lived another 30 years. But when he got back, I'm telling him, Peter, and I'm making up a name to protect the guilty, Peter, this is so wonderful. Now you can write your book. And he said, yes, I'm just about to. A little more research and I'll be ready. Well, as I bet you might be able to guess, he never did write his book. But that turned my life around because I thought, if you're always waiting for the time to be right, how about you might never get there? And I decided that I wasn't going to let fear of failure and rejection slips hold me back. And I began submitting things like to the local newspapers, to local magazines. Uh, and even my first book, it was turned down maybe 20 times. But in the end, I'm 79 now and proud of it, by the way. But I've had 22 books published. I think I'm at 1,800 articles published. And it all came about by changing my idea from being afraid of failure to thinking the only real failure in writing is not to try.
Mm, I love that, not to try. And by the way, I'm going to give you the opportunity while we're on air to really think about what you're saying, because I know that we're close to 70, maybe about 57. So this is the moment that you need to come back and tell the audience the truth.
I'll tell the truth.
I just give you the hard time, Miss Mitzi, but it's amazing, your spirit and the way that you've been able to move forward and use that as a catalyst to work on the best version of you. And for those who are listening to this is why we love this particular show, because you're able to go behind the scenes. So like we brought up earlier, you see all the accolades, you see the things that Miss Mitzi has been able to accomplish, but she had to have that moment. I'm hoping that for some of you who are straddling the fence, that this moment, by able to hear her share her story of how she got started or whatnot, at least with the publishing part, it will help you have the right mindset to move forward. And unfortunately, it might be that like stroke, it might be that bad report from the doctor, it might be that divorce or a situation with a child, or you find yourself at a job or a career that's a dead end particular position that seems like it's like a slingshot that allows for us to thrust forward. So when I'm hearing this, Miss Mitzi, did you just go from there to just straight 22 books? Kind of got us through a little bit of how you maneuver from the one book to now being able to be published 22 times with the books alone.
Okay, well, first of all, it's true I've had 22 books published, but only about half of them have been with trade publishers, as in regular publishing houses. The last 12 have been self-published, which frankly, if our listeners would like to get into a discussion of that, I'm hugely in favor of being self-published, because I never made a whole lot of money when big publishing houses published me. I often wondered if they had really creative accounting or something, but the money just didn't flow in. On the other hand, if you self-publish a book, and maybe it sells for $20 and it costs you $4 to print it, and maybe you do a lot of speaking, which I recommend to anybody. I mean, back of the room sales are just gold. Then you sell it for $20 and you're making $16, and you sell 100 of them, and real nice. So as far as making money, and then another reason I'm in favor of self-publishing, particularly Amazon print on demand, but any kind of self-publishing, I believe that you make an awful lot more money. And then, I'll tell you how I got into print on demand. And I had a contract. I think it was with Putnam, and it was going to be a wonderful thing. It was going to be a biography of my late husband. And, I'm just so excited. But when I'm just about to sign the contract, the head of the company, and I can't swear it was Putnam. This is almost 15 years ago, so I'm a little foggy on that particular detail. But the president of the publishing company told me that he was leaving. And although I could keep on with the publishing company that was going to publish this thing, he said, if you come with me, instead of waiting a year to see it in print, we can have it in print in maybe 2 months. And he said, because if you're part of a big publishing company, they could publish it that fast too if they wanted. But in general, they won't, because they have their schedule of publicity, and there are people ahead of you in the queue. Well, if you're self-published, you can just do it right off. And oh, the benefits to me when I first discovered that I can make vastly more money, and that I can get the instant gratification of having it available soon. Uh, to me, I've never gone back.
Mm, that's amazing. And you know, that woke me up, Miss Missy, and I want to share that with the audience that I had did the same thing with having a self-published book. And I was looking at it, especially because I was already doing speaking. And a friend of mine, a mentor, shared with me. He said, Darren, it's great that you're speaking, but if you're going to be looked at as an expert or separate yourself from others in the marketplace, you need to do a book. So I was like, oh man, okay. Well, I did the book one night because I liked where he was in life or whatnot, and he hadn't let me stray before. So I went and did the book, and it was that magical moment that happened for me, Miss Mitzi, where I did the book. It was, I think I got around $2,500 to speak. It's the first time that I had got more than a piece of chicken and a biscuit or whatnot to speak. And so, man, I was on top of the world. I thought it was, I'm doing my thing. And then I went to the back of the room. It was over 600 people there. And so at the end of it, not all 600 purchased, but 300 did. And so now that went from, wow, I was able to get more in book sales at the back of the room at the end of the engagement than I had even made on stage for the keynote. But I went from that moment of, wow, on top of the world, an apex moment, to where I felt somewhat sadness because I realized, Miss Mitzi, what I had been costing my family, what I had been costing my company, the amount of impact that I was repelling from my life and my legacy to be able to give to the world because I was holding back for so long. But then I came out of it when I realized the importance of what you're sharing here with us today, of getting around people who've done it, getting around people who have the right mindset and the right spirit and the right heart. And so if you don't mind, Miss Mitzi, let's go deeper into that part of it too as well, because I know this is something that you live by. Can we share with the audience the importance, whether it's in publishing or in business or in life, the importance of your network and who you are associated with and having the right allies that are able to help assist you be the best version of yourself?
Almost every good thing that's happened in my life has come from meeting people. I mean, they open doors, they give me new insights. And, you know, if I were advising somebody right now who's maybe thinking of writing a book, or maybe they're in the middle of writing a book, I'd say, here's something that Mitzi Perdue recommends that you do right now, even if you haven't started writing the book or even if you're in the middle of it. Start developing your electronic Rolodex. That is, every person you meet, get their card, put it in your database, because to me that's one of the secrets of success. I will tell you. Let's see. Maybe I should be discreet, and not tell who I'm talking about, because he hasn't given me permission to say this. But I can tell you an author that I just admire to the outer limit. My database has probably between LinkedIn and then just mailing lists, probably 20,000. I was feeling pretty good about it. He has 100 million. 100 million.
Ooh, wow.
So, and I guess my message from there is think big. But if you want to sell a book, it really helps to have as many people as possible know about it. And so, yes, write the book. It's going to change your life. It's going to convert you into an authority. It's going to give you just infinitely more self-confidence. I cannot recommend it strongly enough. However, as you're doing that, think that, you know, the work of writing the book, and I hope you get some help because it's awful hard to produce a book on your own. But as you're working on your book, work on your network. And by the way, I don't expect any other human being to have 100 million. I mean, other than a head of state. It's hard to imagine, but this guy does.
Wow, 100 million. You know, you're talking about think big, and having the right people around you, whatnot. And also, if any of us, for some reason, get puffed up, whatnot, have a little bit of leavened bread inside of us, that will humble you real quick with whatever you think that you have, what you're following on Instagram or something like that. When you see someone has a list of 100 million, that's humbling for us all who think we've made it. If you're a social influencer right now, for those who tuned in, and you know what, Miss Mitzi, this, if you don't mind, share with us of you in business as well, because we know of you as an author. And you know, just like some of the wines, I know some people start, shaking and looking around for a glass when I start saying some of the names. But could you share with us your experience in business, and how have you, leveraged being an author in those other areas and other arenas? Because we know some who feel like, well, I'm having success, or I got a career, or I got a business. Why would I write a book? Or, well, I'm doing good already. But you went for more. So I just want to just know a little bit too, far as what has allowed for you to continue to move forward, even when you were having success in business, but you still wrote books at the same time. Could you share a little bit of the dual approach, or the symbiotic flows that you were able to create by having the books and also running successful businesses?
Well, unless you're a genius author, which I'm not. I'm a standard journeyman author. I mean, I'm not the top, and I hope I'm not the bottom. But for somebody in my situation, I can't recommend strongly enough to have another source of income, so that you're not just having a nervous breakdown when you get that turned down. I'm all in favor of, how about don't quit your day job, and somehow, whether it's your day job or whether it's investments, for your sanity, have another source of income. Because most authors, I mean, to me, writing a book, I recommend it, how about to everybody? But I don't recommend it to everybody as a way of getting rich or even having a big income, because your odds of striking it rich are tiny. In fact, before coming on, I was looking up on the internet how many people are writing books this year, and they're going to be. This is according to UNESCO, and it was figures from last year. 2.2 million books were published last year. Woohoo! I mean, a lot. That means that your competition is simply insane. And I would be surprised if 1% really make any kind of money that they could live off. In fact, it might be 1 in 1,000. I don't know that figure, but I do know tons of people who write books, and the utility of it, at least for me, isn't the money I make out of it. Although, I love the money. I mean, that's good. We like it, but the real benefit for me is I love being perceived as an authority. And how about you become an authority as you do the research and interview the people and go to the conventions, and to write a book, you are going to become a bigger person, and that will help your income in other fields. Now, as for business, in 1974, I came into an inheritance, and I thought I could put it in the stock market. But I thought it would be much more interesting, since I was living in California at the time, to invest it in agricultural land. But since I didn't want to lose my nest egg, I spent 4 years taking university level courses in agronomy, agricultural accounting, agricultural policy, rural appraisal, just everything that you can think of to prepare myself for investing. And then when I actually did put money down to buy a farm, I probably looked at 40 before buying one. And in every case, I felt I could almost write a dissertation on the pros and the cons of that farm, what the soil type was, what its crop records were, what its taxes were, what its neighbors were like. So I'm very in favor of investing, but do a lot of research, or you can lose everything, because people do lose right and left. So just as it's a lot of work to write a book, I think it's also ought to be at least an equal amount of work to investigate what you're going to invest in.
Now, Miss Missy, you hit us with some great value bombs right there. I gotta extract and pull a few things out that you shared with us. You are seeing also, for those who are tuned into this, the importance what was shared by Miss Perdue of making sure that you invest in yourself. What are you willing to do for your success? You need to prepare. I was just sharing this with my oldest daughter going to volleyball practice today as well, of the preparation precedes blessing, so to speak. Now, when you're preparing for that moment and that opportunity by working out ahead of time, then when it's that moment in time for actual tryouts, you are ready. The same thing with Miss Missy is sharing with us. These are transferable skills that you can utilize in any area of your life. So if it's my daughter doing volleyball, if it's Miss Missy buying a farm, if it comes to writing your book, you want to make sure that you do your due diligence. Do not take it lightly and just say, hey, I got the money, let me just throw it at it, like it's a crap shot. This is not what we're saying. To make sure that you're diligent and make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's in all arenas will allow for you to be able to soar to higher heights and new levels, and allow for you to feel more confident and know that you are who you say you are when you go make that investment, because you have weighed the pros and the cons as Miss Perdue has shared with us or whatnot. So I want you to think about that. And also backing up just a little bit more is where Miss Missy shared with us of understanding that it's imperative to realize. I like to use this analogy. If anybody comes to our publishing company, I tell them the only people who are making money off books or made money off the books for the most part is unless you wrote chicken soup for the soul, or you wrote the Bible. I use that as an example, whatnot. But the key to it is, if you're coming here to write a book with us and your mindset is that you're going to live off the royalties in Cabo with a Modelo and a margarita in your hand and just wait on royalty checks to take care of you, then we don't even want to do business with you. We care for you. We'll point you in another direction to somebody who can assist you. But we believe in you using that as what Miss Perdue shared with us, to be an authority figure, to open up doors, to create symbiotic flows. So if you're speaking, that's the channel. If you're doing some consulting, that's a channel. If you have a nonprofit of your choice, or you're already a thought leader, or you're desiring to be, or you want to add value, even if you are an entrepreneur, you work within another organization or a corporation, these are all ways that you can utilize the book. And Miss Perdue, I know you're going to love this. I had a client before. He had a biology degree. He wrote a quote book, but his college sweetheart lived in Detroit, but he lived in Chicago. So what he did was he utilized the book when he had an opportunity in Detroit. So he utilized the book and when he went in for an interview and gave it to the HR department, and head of the HR department, and said, thanks for taking time out to interview me today. I want to give you a copy of my new publication or whatnot, which was his quote book. Not only did he get the position because he separated himself from the others, also they gave him a stipend. They also gave him a moving package. And I'm happy to say a couple years after that, him and his college sweetheart are married. And so here's a guy with a biology degree. The book had nothing to do with biology at all, but it was just another way for those who might say it makes sense for Miss Perdue. Darren, it makes sense for you. You own a publishing company. But what about me? I'm a Joe or I'm a Jane out there or whatnot. Does it make sense for me to utilize and have a book? Because I might not be a keynote speaker or do TED Talks or anything like that. And, Miss Perdue, do you feel like that it's important, regardless if someone is a business owner? Because I know somebody out there who's thinking with that type of mindset, they might have limited beliefs. Could you share with them the importance of, even though it's so many million books being produced or published, of the importance why it's still important for them to share their story with the world if they feel like they're called to share it?
Well, I'll tell you something about my family then in books. There's a saying that I heard recently: when a grandfather dies, if he hasn't written a book, it's like a library burning down, because that grandfather knew so much, and when he's gone, it's gone. Well, in my family, we've been in a family business since 1840. And if you can't do math in your head, everybody who's listening, that's 180 years. Oh, and what's kept us together as a family? Well, this may be a unique rule, but I'm really proud of it. by the time you're 60, if you're a Henderson or a Henderson descendant, you're supposed to write your autobiography. And we have shelves and shelves and shelves of books. I mean, I wrote my autobiography at age 60, and it can be 16 pages or it can be 1,000 pages. But the idea is, and the point that I'm working up to is, even if you don't expect your book to be on the bestseller list of the New York Times, how about it's going to be a gift to your family just beyond price? In fact, before coming on, I looked up another little statistic that I'm just eager to share with you and with our listeners or our audience. And that is, there's an investment advisory company, and I'm not sure of its entire name, but the first part of the name is Allianz. And I think it's longer than that, but they commissioned a study in which they asked people, they advise their wealth advisors, and they did this survey of thousands and thousands of people, asking, which is more important to you, to as people who are going to inherit? Would you rather have funds, as in money, or would you rather know what your origin story is, what your identity is, where your parents came and what they struggled with? And I found the answer astonishing, and yet I agree with it. And let me pause for a second and invite you to guess, but so as not to embarrass you or anybody in our audience, I won't ask you to answer out loud, but just for a second, guess what proportion of people felt that their identity was more important than money? Pause, answer. 86%. 86% said that a book or some way of just knowing who they were and where they came from and what their identity was more important than money. And so for the person who isn't going to be a public speaker, who isn't looking for another job, write your book anyway and have it published so that the people who come after you can learn from you. And again, to me, it's one of the most satisfying experiences in the world, looking back on your life and thinking what lessons you've learned and what you'd like to share. I do believe it's possibly the biggest thing that has kept the Henderson family together for 180 years.
Mm. And you know what, Miss Perdue, I think that what you just shared there, I know we've heard it before, and I'm glad that you were able to share it from that lens or that perspective. When we think of legacy, some of us feel like that, of course, financial, we're not going to repel that.
No, we like that.
Just what you just shared with that part right there. I think that's the difference. Is I know some of y'all saying, here, Darren, go again. It's the mindset. So if I have that wealth of knowledge of knowing the origin of where my great 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 grandfather came from, or even if it's just one generation ago, what were they going through during that particular time, or if it's something that if one of my kids are able to pick up and read from their grandmother, now all of a sudden it's real what they're learning in history now when they're in school, because not only are you hearing it from this perspective of the book or in a course that you're studying at college, but you're able to hear what your own ancestors, what they were going through at that particular time. And it gives relevance and understanding for you to see what their perspective were to lead up to where you are right now. And so I believe when we look at legacy, it's more important of not what we leave as much as what we're leaving in our descendants for generations to come. It's a combo. It's a combination. And I'm glad that you shared that or whatnot, what kept the Henderson family together. And that's something that I believe that's important. We can look at a crest or we can look at all that, but having those articles or those files or those books to be able to go and look at and read is definitely important. If you
Actually, can I jump in with one?
Go ahead.
That somebody who doesn't expect to be in the bestseller list and doesn't expect to make a lot of money, and why it's still worthwhile. If you care about those who come after you, it might be your own children, maybe your nieces and nephews and cousins. There's a name that I invite everybody to remember. She's a professor at Emory University, and her name is Robin Fivish. And she has the most fascinating topic to study, and that is what makes a family high functioning. And by high functioning, the family enjoys each other. They do well in school. They're healthy. They don't get in trouble with the law. They don't do drugs. But that's what I think how she would define high functioning. And she'll get into more technical and academic stuff, but you get the picture. Yeah. Okay, so what are the factors? What are the biggest factors that make a family high functioning? And she believes, and she's got a ton of research to back this up, that the more the family knows its stories, the more they're secure in their identity. This is what we do and this is what we would never do. We are the stories we tell ourselves. And if we don't tell our stories, we're not going to be a high functioning family, which probably means that you're more susceptible to drugs, all the bad stuff. So write your story.
Wow. Oh.
In fact, to build on that, there's a guy named Joe Califano who I think 40 or 50 years ago was Secretary of Health and Human Services, a cabinet level position. When he retired, he looked around the world and decided that drugs and substance abuse was preventing it, was how he wanted to spend the rest of his life. Well, I believe that he's raised hundreds of millions of dollars to study what helps protect families from substance abuse. And, it comes back almost to the same thing. The more connected you are with your family, the more you absorb their values, the more time you spend with them. But basically, the more you know your stories and get your identity, because we are the stories we tell ourselves, the more protected you are against substance abuse.
Man.
And by the way, it's not, he would, I think he'd be the first to say there are no guarantees, but you can improve your odds. If you have the identity that enables you to resist somebody said, I've got this thing that's really going to make you feel good and wants to give you something that will make you feel good right now and terrible the rest of your life.
That's amazing. That's like you said, and your perception is your reality, and it's the narrative that you're telling yourself. And it will lead to what you're feeling emotionally. For one, start with the thoughts that becomes emotional. Then you start taking actions that actually are fulfilling themselves, self-fulfilling prophecies and whatnot. And it's just amazing. And this is why we go behind the scenes with best-selling authors from across the globe. And we have been on with Miss Mitzi Perdue, who's definitely given us legacy, telling us about books, telling us about business, the power of relationships. Now, before people start throwing rotten green tomatoes at the screen on me, please, Miss Mitzi, share with them, how can people connect with you? Because I know I'm wanting more. So if they want to purchase books, or if you have other products or services available, whatever you got going on, we want to know more about it.
I'm trying to hold this up so that you can see it.
Oh,
it's my latest book. It's my 22nd book. And in this case, it's how to be up during down times, which I'm pretty sure now is. And I wrote it, my co-author is Mark Victor Hansen, the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy.
Oh, yeah. I think I've heard of him before.
Okay. I love him beyond measure, and his wife also. Because they're just such good people. But this book, it began probably in February, and I'm friendly with the family. So we were discussing how tough times are. And then both he's world famous for encouraging people, and I am not world famous, but I do have 40 years as a writer. Often, basically, I'm a science writer and a health writer. My column went to 420 newspapers, which made it it just plain did. And then I also wrote for the Academy of Women's Health and for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology News. So in 40 years, I have come across a lot of information that can really help people. And Mark and I were discussing that, and we thought, why not put it together in a book in which would have 40 tips that could really make a difference and help people get through.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Extraordinary content is always. Please make sure, could you hold the book up one more time, Ms. Mitzi? We will have it in the show notes. You can purchase your copy, How to Be Up in down times. Make sure that you go get the book. We will make sure that we have links and information in the show notes. And Miss Mitzi, we just want to thank you for being the jewel, the treasure that you are.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, and I want to say this before we get out of here. Miss Mitzi came out on her own time. She wasn't compensated to be on this particular show. She took time out to pour into us. So I want to go back to what you said just, a little bit before of what is the narrative that you're telling yourself? Are you thinking to yourself, because you could read, some of you could read that, those who are having limited beliefs could have read that bio or read the show notes and thought to yourself, it's no way that she would care that much. It's no way that a person that's had this much success would take their time out. Who am I? And so this is what I want you to leave with from the show, is that you have to change the narrative. Listen to shows like this, read the books like what Miss Mitzi put out, also with Mark Victor Hansen or whatnot. Change the narrative that you're telling yourself, because you can forfeit opportunities. I love this one by T.D. Jakes, where he says, most people acquiesce to known hells, forfeiting unknown heavens.
Wow.
And
Well,
I'm sorry about that. What'd you say, Miss Missy?
but I didn't want to interrupt your thought.
No, it's just that thought alone, that most people acquiesce to known hells, forfeiting unknown heavens. And so that's what I want you to understand as well. When you choose to think different and you got a different narrative or whatnot, it will allow for you to go to another level as far as what you're doing. And so
No, I'd be happy to share that. My late husband, Frank Perdue, used to say, if you want to be happy, think what you can do for somebody else. If you really want to be miserable, think what's owed to you. And since I'm into being happy, I'd love to be thinking what I can do for somebody else. But it goes beyond that, which is I have a purpose in life. I mean, I think that the good Lord put me here for the following purpose. Now, I don't know this is true, but this is how it feels. I feel I'm here to increase happiness and decrease misery. And anything that I can share that would help people like further on the road to the success that they dream of. And maybe it's family success, maybe it's love success, maybe it's professional success, maybe it's a great big bucket with all of that. If there's anything that I can share from my 79 years of existence, I'm eager to do it.
Wow. On that note, we're going to close this episode out for as the author spotlight. Miss Perdue, you did not let us down, young lady. I mean, wow, what an amazing. I'm glad that we did not allow some of the difficulties we were dealing with to get in the way of this show. I feel inspired and empowered. I don't know about anybody else, but I got some great content that I'm going to be able to implement in my life by listening to you today. So I just want to say thank you. We're blessed and honored to have you on the Author Spotlight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy.
Awesome. For those who are tuned in, remember that you all are the real MVPs. And remember, if you won't change, be the change. Until next time, remember that this is the year for your new